And firstly, welcome to this afternoon's webinar, and thanks for joining us and taking the time out of your no doubt busy Friday afternoons. The purpose of this afternoon's discussion is to give you a bit of an introduction to the Maia Grazing program and give a bit of a demonstration into that, and also answer any questions that you may have. I'll be just running a bit of a session for you to start with for this first little bit, and we've also got Nic Walker, who has taken on the role of being the primary contact point for RCS in the Maia Grazing aspect there, and we've also got Bart Davidson, who has had a lot to do with the development of the program and works with Maia Technologies and has had a long association with RCS as well. What we're going to go through this afternoon is I just want to put it into context around where this program may sit for you, and make sure that we're focusing on really the outcome we're trying to achieve within any operation as being that of a professional manager. Talk about it, Maia Technology and Maia Grazing, and then an overview of what the program is, how it works, and why it may fit into your business. And then have a bit of a demonstration of the software, a quick outline of the costs, and how to get started. And then any questions and answers that may still exist at the end there, we'll have a chat around those. Excuse me. To start with, let's just touch on professional management. Now, I believe, and if you're taking the time to be involved in this webinar this afternoon, you do aspire to be the most professional manager that you can within whatever your operation may be. To be a professional manager, we must be focused on achieving business improvement and life improvement. Otherwise, we're not actually doing it for any real purpose. And then we've got these production systems down the bottom here, and we need to look at how do we link those together. Now, just really briefly around this RCS model, the first thing we need to do is to get from our production system certain types of data with relation to the physical or the land data, your financial data, and then your livestock or crop data, which those who done workshops with us, we're talking about the three legs of the pot and the three-legged pot. So they're all pretty important areas to get data. More importantly, we want to convert that data though into meaningful information, and that's the bit that can be quite cumbersome and difficult, and isn't done probably to the standard that a lot of people would like to, because it can take a lot of work and a lot of time to be able to do that. When we have meaningful information, and assuming that we've ticked off and you've got clear goals and a clear direction within your operation, it's at that point there that you can actually start to make professional decisions. And to me, professional management occurs when you're making decisions based on an agreed goals and an agreed direction and using meaningful information. So that's where we actually become about being a professional manager. And we talk about this as being the RCS professional management model, and find a lot of people finding it very useful to look at areas and strengths within the business, and then areas that probably need to just work on to be able to get to that point of making professional decisions. The knowledge to how to do it is one part, and we know it's easy to get hold of knowledge now. What can be a little bit more difficult is actually turning that knowledge into skills and making the change. And I think this is an area, it's this execution of the ideas that can be very difficult, and an area that we would like to focus on more in most cases, and I'm sure that you in certain cases would agree. Following on from that management model around making decisions, let's just touch really quickly on that land leg of the three-legged pot. And I just wanted to touch on what are we doing all this for? What's the goal from our grazing management and the decisions that we're trying to make? And the overall regenerative goal that we now work on with the principles is to profitably leave our country in better condition. Okay, so it's to improve the country during our tenure as stewards of the land, and to profitably do so along the way. We do that by implementing these 6 principles of regenerative grazing. First one is to plan, monitor and manage your grazing. Second one is around controlling time to suit the growth rate of the plant, aiming for that phase 2. Third principle is matching stocking rate to carrying capacity. And then 4 is managing livestock effectively and everything that impacts on animal performance. And then we have density and biodiversity as principles 5 and 6. So I'm not going to go into detail on the principles, except to to talk about these first four as being the most important in order of importance. Having a plan, monitoring against it, and managing. Getting you a combination of resting and grazing as good as we can within the situation that we've got to work with. Matching stocking rate to carrying capacity and making sure we're getting performance. Now, they're the ones that really make or break a grazing business. Now, these first three principles are all about managing the ecosystem. It's all about managing that ecosystem to make sure that we've actually will be leaving our country in better condition. The fourth principle is about the business side. It's making sure that we're getting, hopefully, low-cost production out of our livestock or out of our crops to make sure that we're getting good performance so we can convert that into dollars. And then the last two really are a combination of ecosystem and business performance. So what we're focused on here is not just business and it's not just ecosystem, it's a combination of the two, and it's making sure that we've got the capacity to as easily as we can implement these first four principles. Now, if you've been to a course recently, you would have seen these couple of photos, but if we don't get the principles right and we start to make mistakes, well then you can find that you got your head in a bit of a jam, and it can have some pretty negative impacts and some serious consequences for you and your business and your whole of operation, which I'm pretty sure that we would like to try and avoid as much as possible. So why grazing charts, and what role do grazing charts play within our decision-making capacity in professional management and implementing these principles? And it's a tool that helps us to manage the utilisation of the results of our free inputs, being rainfall and sunlight. We've already got soil, and really at the end of the day all our production comes from how well we convert rainfall and sunlight into growth. That's what we're constantly trying to juggle and get as good as we can. Now we can fill in the traditional grazing charts. This is just a mock one that I use for teaching, and they're still an amazingly powerful tool. And I thought I'd go and ask the doctor. We're getting a fair bit of mileage now that Terry's got his honorary doctorate. We can go and ask the doc for a checkup. And I just said to him, well, what comments would you make on grazing charts specific for this webinar? And he just got back from being on the road, and he said that last week a client told him that his grazing chart was the most important tool that he's had to manage his grazing business in the last 20 years. And it's a pretty fair statement for somebody who's been in business that long to be able to say it's the most important tool that he's had to manage his grazing business. So it's a really powerful tool, and a lot of you guys would be aware of that. Terry went on to say you can't manage what you don't measure, that old adage which we've all heard and know very well. And Terry said that by measuring he means planning and monitoring. So if we come back to that, the grazing principles, the first one is to plan, monitor and manage your grazing system. And your grazing chart, the reason why we've been promoting and talking about this for so long is it is such a powerful tool when used. And for me personally, if I think about the clients that I think do an excellent job of grazing management, most of them still fill out paper grazing charts, or they've gone to their own Excel versions that they've designed. But the point I'm making here is they use grazing charts. So I don't think there's anybody that comes to mind for me, and I'm sure they may be out there, I'm just not aware of them, that are really good grazing managers for long periods of time that don't utilise a grazing chart in some format. So I don't believe it's a coincidence that the good guys use the chart as a decision tool for these reasons we just talked about, and some of the benefits of our and why. And Graham, I can see you're on, you might recognise the photo in the background there. The benefits of a grazing chart, why do we use it? Accurate feed budgeting. Becoming more accurate at feed budgeting by having that feedback loop is a really important one. For me personally, learning how to feed budget, I still reckon is one of the most powerful management tools and skills that I learned. Once you can feed budget, you're then going to be able to match stocking rate to carrying capacity with a lot more confidence. We can do a lot more projections and scenarios with that information. You can do a lot more planning that's meaningful. You can calculate what your individual paddock yields are, and if you've got individual paddock yields, you can be making much more economic decision making, putting some fact to go with your gut feel and perspectives. You've got a visual representation of how you're actually grazing your country. Okay, how frequently are you grazing country, going back into it, how are you using it, how much are you taking out, knowing how much feed you're actually getting out of each paddock. And combining all this information is essentially drought-proofing your paddocks. It's really powerful data, isn't it? It's extremely powerful, it's extremely useful, and it makes a difference in the business. And so we can then pose the question, well, how do you interpret and use a grazing chart in order to make it a $15,000 tool? Now, I've used the 15,000 because we get a lot of feedback from clients that I just made a decision that was worth $15,000 to me. Okay, so I just made a decision that's worth $15,000. Now that's a pretty nice one. At the last executive link meeting, we had one of the ladies share an example there, and she made a decision that I think from memory was a $40,000 decision based on the information she was getting from her grazing charts. And that took her, I think it was about 4 hours, so it was about a $10,000 an hour job for her. And so we're talking some pretty low numbers. But we can take that up a level too to a $150,000 tool. I've got two really clear examples. Tom Hungerford, you talk about one in the Territory, and then the other one is a client in southeast Queensland who, in his particular example, he said he lost $150,000 because he stopped filling in the grazing chart and missed the warning signals that were coming. He didn't have that information available to him. So in southeast Queensland, it's not huge scale to be operating on, and yet the size of the cost that he put on that missed decision, he said, cost him $150,000. As soon as he went back and filled in the grazing chart, he could just see the writing on the wall that he could have avoided that circumstance. And then there's another client in southern Queensland who said the value of the decision that he made from his grazing chart was worth $450,000. So it's not just to have a bit of information there in case you wanted to go back and look at it at some stage, or to have a pretty tool. It's a pretty valuable decision-making tool to have there ready. And if I'm assuming most of the people on this webinar have come and done a course with us at some point in time. We're very clear on that. And yet, in reality, quite a small number of clients actually fill in a grazing chart and keep it going for a long period of time. So how do we interpret and use a grazing chart to make it a $450,000 tool? To me, it's pretty straightforward. Step one is fill it in. And it sounds pretty straightforward, and it sounds like it makes a lot of sense. In reality, I believe the reason why a lot of people may start and then stop filling in a grazing chart, or don't actually get to the point of starting it, is because they don't have really easy to access and accurate stock numbers. If you don't know how many LSU or DSE that you've got in a mob, it's really hard to go and fill in a grazing chart, isn't it? And if you're relying on weigh bills and notebooks which fall into troughs and pieces of paper and numbers written on hands and numbers given to somebody else that somebody else didn't write down, and the notebook that's in another truck which is on another property, the full plethora of options that prevent us having good stock numbers. If you're relying on that to know what your livestock numbers are, it's very difficult to fill in a grazing chart. And I think that's where we need to focus, is let's look at how you keep your stock numbers, and then your grazing chart becomes really easy. We've got to move the focus, in my opinion, so we've got that information. So moving on to MaiaGrazing, well, what is it? In a nutshell, it's a cloud-based app or program that captures the real-time livestock and grazing data. Now, MaiaGrazing has been developed by a company called Maia Technologies, who's a group of business and tech and ag professionals who got together to work on this software for decision making and better farm performance. And they're quite passionate about improving productivity and efficiency using technology, so that we've got a more sustainable and profitable future for ag moving forward. And so as a team, they're pretty passionate about it. And I started having a conversation. I think the first conversation was with Bart, who's on the call there today. Would have been, I'm going to guess, 16 or 18 months ago, around what they were looking to do. And then a number of conversations last year looking at what they're developing and where they were heading. And the reason we've been happy to be involved is that we can see that it does link a few different aspects together within the business, and presents the opportunity to be a pretty powerful decision-making tool for clients. And that's the bit that excites me. So if we look at what it does, And I'm just going to do a bit of an overview on what I see that the program does and what the benefits from it may be, and then Nic's going to give you a bit of a run through of it. So this is from my perspective. What I like about it is it records mob-based livestock data, including weights and then standard animal units, so your LSU or DSE, whatever SAU unit you're working in. And in my experience, that is something that's missing in the industry, is a nice, simple to use program that does mob-based livestock data. There's some really good stuff that's very specific and is very useful for people wanting individual animal data. But in terms of something that that does a good job of your mob-based livestock data, I didn't feel as though there was a nice option there from the ones that I'd seen. That's all I can comment on. So I think that's a good starting point for it. You record your mob location, and it can generate your grazing plans for you, and so you can come up with your forward planning around what you're going to have where and what that works on, what rest periods you may be trying to achieve, or regardless of what system you're using. If you've got good livestock data and you've recorded where your animals are, your grazing chart's essentially done for you. It's not a second step to go and do. It's a matter of you've got the information there, get your livestock information recorded, say where they are, and it'll generate that grazing chart for you based on that information. Suitable for any style of system. I think, to me, this is just as applicable for clients in the territory on large, expansive operations with that don't have the opportunity with the systems to set up a lot of rest and grazing, as it is for somebody that might be running a 200 paddock system. Because it focuses on the livestock data, which is imperative as well as the grazing chart. So it doesn't matter what system you're in. It does a lot of on-the-fly calculations for you. So instead of having to go and try and pull that livestock information together and then go and get the paddock information and then try and find some history, it's pulling all this information together to give you some data on the run. It's pretty easy to go through and make changes to the records and plans. So it's not that it's all fixed in stone, and as you get more accurate information, it doesn't mean you can't go back and change what it is that you thought had happened. Using all that information, you get up-to-date gross product calculations, and that's a really powerful one when it comes to doing business analysis. Provides that information for you. The last one I put there in terms of what it does is it removes the need for multi-step reporting and comms. And by that I mean if I'm looking to work with a client and I want to look at their livestock data and grazing chart data, I don't have to wait for them to get that information through to me and pull it into a format that I can look at. It's just a matter of getting access to the program, going in and having a look, and we've got that information at hand there. For some of the corporate clients that are using this, it's wonderful in terms of we're not waiting for the manager to do end-of-month reporting on livestock information. Basically, the recording that he does on a day-to-day basis and a nightly basis is all he needs to do. That information's complete. How it works, the first point is that it's a cloud-based system, and it sits in a secure online server. So it doesn't sit on your PC, and it sits online, which if you've got really poor internet access, could be an issue. However, it's also, from a multi-person point of view, which a lot of people operate in now in today's age, it gets around that issue of not having access to the latest information. It can be accessed from your computer, from a phone, from a tablet, anything that's got access to the internet, and can be accessed by all of the team, as I mentioned there. And that's the beauty of that cloud-based system. And you can have these individual logins, so you can see who's logged in, who's done what, and you can allocate tasks to individuals within your team. Essentially what it does is it records what you do when you do it. So instead of that multiple touches of pieces of information, it's really looking to cut down on the number of times that you enter information at any one point, and a bit more time on actually using the information. On that cloud-based aspect, there is an offline app being developed for your tablets and phones, and there's a functional version of that that's currently being beta tested, and we expect will be released in the near future. So there is going to be that aspect for those of you who don't have mobile access out in the paddocks. That offline app is pretty close to being released, so it will be working, utilisable for you guys there as well. What are some of the benefits from it? To me, I see that the first and primary benefit is that you've got a central data point for two of your key units of production. You're in the business of producing grass and then making decisions to convert that grass into the most economic form of production that you can. And yet, come back to Terry's point before, you can't manage that which you don't measure and monitor and plan around. So it's really important to have this central data point there. And once you've got that central data point, then you can convert that data to meaningful information and start to make decisions. And that's where you get your power. It's not just about having data, it's about using it to make decisions. And the two key ones is good, complete livestock records. You've got the capacity to go into the program and press a button and get your stock flow out. And you press a button and you've got your access to your grazing chart. And that's a live grazing chart updated all the time. So if you think back to this professional management model I talked about before down the bottom right, the financial data since the days of GST being brought in, that area's been tidied up a lot, hasn't it? You've got access to numbers. It may need a bit of tweaking at times to get meaningful information from it, but you've got access to financial data. And I think we need to just make sure we've got access to good land production data and good livestock data and KGs and LSU and DSC. And I think that's the exciting one for me. The follow-on with that is that by having a central data point for it is that you're significantly reducing your admin time. And I honestly believe a lot of people wish they had better records. As just allocating the time to implement a system for that to happen and keep it live is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And that's where the key benefits come in. From an operational team point of view, what we're finding that the guys that have been trialling this are finding it's really good at bringing the operational team together for planning, doing, monitoring and recording. And I'm really liking, and you can see there's this recent activities, I'm not sure if you can make it out there, which is on the dashboard in the program. A client the other day, I was able to go out there and have a chat to the cattle manager about how the 3-day management was going, 3-day sickness management, because he'd logged in there that yet moved the cattle, observed there was some 3-day, a couple of days later, still some 3-day, but not as much. So we've got all this information here that starts to be recorded and explain what may or may not be happening out in the paddock. And I found that quite exciting to be able to have that conversation and be aware of that without having to go digging for it and interrogate people to get the data. Make much more timely decisions, matching stocking rate to carrying capacity when you've got this information. Again, it's about making decisions. And Bart was talking about a client in New South Wales, I believe, that made a decision to sell stock a couple of weeks earlier than they were planning based on what the grazing chart was telling them. And they believe that was worth around $130,000 to them. So I'm sure we've all seen at different times there that making that decision at the right time and just being a bit more proactive about your decisions can be worth some significant money at times. The other thing it has is you've got objective data for decision making. And it may remove tension. I've got may italicized there because I'm not going to guarantee that it's going to get rid of all the tension that some of you may have in your family operations. But if you've got the capacity to be able to talk objectively around what yields you've been getting from country, what sort of production you've been getting, then it takes away that subjectiveness and the opinions that may exist, and you can balance that out with some more objective data to help you to get to an outcome. And as I mentioned before, it makes these external reviews easy by, say, ourselves as professional advice providers and also for others as set by you. It's up to you who has access to your information, obviously. But for me to be able to just log in and have a look at how somebody's stock days per hectare per 100 mils is trending and to dig back into what their mob dynamics are like is wonderful, and to be able to go and pull down a stock flow and just see what their performance has been like. And to be able to do that at no extra work of the client, from my point of view, I think it's a much more efficient way to be able to provide timely advice. And just a final point for some may be of interest there, it's audit ready, because any changes that are made and who makes them is recorded. So from an audit point of view, having that log of changes is going to be useful. Just really quickly, some of the key features of the program: it is a central data point. There's automatic backups, and one of the benefits of being cloud-based is that there are multiple backup points and backup points and sites which are managed by Maia Technologies. So you're not going to lose your data when your computer crashes. And I deliberately say when, not if, because it inevitably will happen. So you don't lose your data, or you're not worrying about, in the unfortunate case of a fire or flood coming through, losing all that information, or a dog chewing up your homework or anything like that. You've still got access to this extremely valuable information. There's no software installation with it as another feature, and there's automatic upgrades along the way, being an online program. If we just have a bit of a look at the program, what it looks like, this is what the dashboard looks like. So you can see you've got your rolling rainfall, what your livestock numbers are, what your total number of DSE or LSU are, and if you've got your feed budgeting entered into it, it gives you the day's feed available in front of you. And this is an area that's still being developed and coming. And to me, it's really exciting to be able to have that projection aspect of it with it. The DSE, it's customizable as to what units you want to work into. So most of the major units that you guys are going to be working into, that's just customized, and you put down what's relevant for you. Down the bottom here is your SDH per 100 graph. Or in this case here, it's your DSE days per hectare rather than LSU, and you can put your benchmark carrying capacities. You can either have an upper and a lower limit, or just the one upper limit, and you can select that for all of your country or for certain sections of the property as you've got it set up. So you can see which way you're trending, how everything's going, moving forward. Underneath that, there's a rainfall chart, which Nic is going to show you in a second. So this bit here goes straight underneath that, your stocking rate to carrying capacity graph. You've got your mob locations and what each of your mobs are, how many head are in them, how many DSE or LSU, where they're currently at, which paddock, and how long they've been in there for, what the recovery is, and the yield out of that paddock. Upcoming moves. So, and this is assuming you've got a grazing plan entered into it, and if you've got a stock move coming up, so you're moving the North Syd steers into from front 7 to front 8. If you've made the move, it's as simple as coming in on your tablet or your iPhone or on your computer when you get home, and just ticking the box and basically confirming that what you intended to do, so what your plan was, if it was an actual, well then you tick it off, and your plan then becomes your history and becomes your data record moving forward. So you're not having to re-enter that information. Next paddocks that you're going into, rainfall situation, and then recent events. And this is where I was capturing that client who was having that issue with 3-day by looking in that area there. So the information is available to you. From a remote point of view, there's a lot that you can do out in the paddock. It does continue to surprise me just how many clients are carrying smartphones with them, and just the role that it is playing for people nowadays. If you asked me that question 4 years ago, I'd have said, oh no, it's really not going to be that common, but I have absolutely been proved wrong in that one. On the fly, the type of information that you can enter on your phone is if you're selling cattle, buying cattle, moving stock, you're splitting a mob or transferring animals out of a mob into another mob, putting 2 mobs together, recording any rainfall that happened, any brandings or births that you've observed. It is pretty customizable, guys. The team that have put this together are mainly a Southern Australian team, so it's designed to be pretty detailed, and you can go right down to having, if a paddock is an oats or lucerne or certain improved pasture base, or whether it's a native pasture. There's a lot of different levels in the information that you can record, and then it's still very applicable for the extensive northern guys as well. One of the reasons that we have been quite comfortable moving forward with Maia Technology is the approach that they've taken, and I've just put this complex little graph up there, or diagram up, that the Maia Tech guys have put together just to show how complex it is. And anybody who's tried to design a spreadsheet to manage these different components of their business would know, frankly, how bloody difficult it is. I've made some pretty complex spreadsheets in my time with RCS, and then as a client of RCS beforehand, and it's really hard to pull all these aspects together. It's extremely complex, and I think that's why there isn't a spreadsheet there that does everything just yet. And so a team of software developers have really spent a lot of time looking at all the different components of this, and as I said, they've been working on this I'm sure they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to say at least 18 months has gone into getting the software to where it is at this point in time. So there's a lot of different layers behind it. We're looking, I'd like to see aspects such as profit probe incorporated into the future. So again, if you've got this information, your livestock and your grazing data, well then we can add profit probe and other aspects to it. A couple of questions coming in. Is there a capacity for recording animal health activities? So that's been looked into at this point in time. You can record what's happening so you've got a log of what's going on. What the program isn't at this point in time, and I'm actually really comfortable with, is it's not an individual animal recording system. I believe that we can do that quite accurately with our scale head units. Your Gallagher or True Test type units are really good at your individual animal data. What's been missing is converting that individual animal data into good mob-based data for this really high-level decision making and the LSU points of view. Once we've got that information, there's your grazing chart. There's just a bit of an image of what it all comes up look like. If you filled in one, you'll notice that it's very similar. It's all laid out the same way. You can see you can shift where it is, but there's the information up to today. So everything in front of that is based on the future plan. So if you've got a grazing plan committed within the program, it actually brings that up visually so you can see what's due when. And then anything that's left behind that is your grazing history. With your planning, it's quite intuitive to go and put in a plan, and as with any new program, it may take you a couple of goes to get used to it. You've got access to Nic Walker to be able to help you to do this. So any support in using the program is just a phone call away to step through it, and we're finding that after a few bits of support, you tend to get the hang of it, and then next year when it comes time to doing the plan, well, you'll probably need a bit of a hand to set it up again and make sure you've got it right. Individual paddock performance, so you can have a look at what your yield has been in the last 12 months, what the intensity has been, how much you took out in the last graze, whether it was a light or medium or heavy graze last time, how much rest it's had. So you've got pretty good paddock analytics available there to be able to see what's happening and to be able to make decisions from that. You can, on demand, pull up a stock flow for whatever period of time that you'd like to do, whether it be a month or whether it be a full year for doing whole of business analysis. Looking at your gross product from different enterprises and stock classes is really important and powerful to be able to say, actually, where's my production coming from and which parts of the business are holding us back. And then just finalising, just found Bart will comment a bit later, at the moment you view your stock flow in the program, but it's just about ready to come back to being a downloadable report. So you press it and you get your stock flow spat out into Excel so you can use it for other parts of your business and decision making. The questions just come in there. Is the available forage input assessed the same as previous grazing charts? The feed budgeting that you're putting in is you enter the field in yourself there, Bruce, so it's not copied forward from previous years, so you actually do need to do your feed budget to be able to do your planning and do your budgets moving forward. So that's not something that it tries to estimate or calculate for you. You go through and say, all this country here has got so many SDHs or DDH or kgs of dry matter available, or you go through and enter a paddock for individual, a yield for individual paddocks. Righto, I'm going to hand over to Nic Walker now, and Nic's just going to give you a bit of a run through the program. Nic, you all right to go, are you?
Yeah, no worries at all, David.
I've just unmuted you.
Are you able to hand over there, David?
Are you there, Nic?
Yeah, yep, still here. Are you able to hand over for me? Can you hear me, David? You there? Hello?
Gotta love technology, don't you? You gotta...
Hi, Nic. David,
Hi,
Nic is
Katie, how are you
there.
going?
I'll just hand over and I'll make Nic the presenter, and hopefully that'll get us to the point where we can
Yep, I can. You got me there now, David? Can you hear me, Katie?
Yes, loud and clear, Nic,
Yep.
and we can see your screen. Thank
Yep.
you.
All good, coming through there. Thanks, Nic.
No, thanks a lot, guys. Good afternoon, everyone. When you first log into to MaiaGrazing, you're presented with the dashboard, which David has already been through. I will just show you the rainfall graph that he mentioned. So it displays here your monthly totals in the bar graph and your rolling average in the line graph and all the other bits and pieces that, on the page that David mentioned. The software also has the capacity to treat all of your livestock just as you would operationally in the paddock. You can move your mobs, do your splits and transfers and so on, right within the software, and that tool handles the information that you enter, and you don't have to worry about any of the calculations to come through and display your stock flow report that David also mentioned. And this is in a beta testing phase, but shouldn't be too far away before it's in its final release. So we can choose to report on either enterprise or stock class level. This one's by enterprise, but we can also drill down and see our individual stock classes within those enterprises. But the main thing I want to show you today is taking you through a grazing plan. So we come into our grazing plans and create a new grazing plan. We can create either a growing season plan or a non-growing season plan, and given that we're coming into drier times in most of the country, we'll create a non-growing season plan. And what I've got here, which I call demo plan, and I'm choosing to start on the 1st of May, just not too far away. We're taking us through until the end of October, which gives us 183 non-growing days to cover. But just in case it hasn't rained by the end of October, I'd like to put in another 30 days reserve there, which takes our total days grazing required up to 213, right on that right-hand side there. And if we have any days that we might be feeding our stock substitution feed, I can put that in, and that just removes that off the total days grazing required. So then we come back down and choose our mobs and paddocks, and I'm going to run with our trade weaners mob. You can put other mobs in for scenario checking, but our trade weaners have a total mob rating of 522 LSU, 501 in the mob. Then we select the areas on our property that we want to add to the plan, and all of the paddocks in our plan are then displayed. We can add individual paddocks from other parts of the property if we want to add them to the plan, or we can just remove some paddocks if we know for some reason that they're not going to be made available during the non-growing season. Then we've got our assumptions on the right-hand side. We can either choose stock days or kilograms per hectare of dry feed, as depending on our individual preferences. And then we've got SDHs, DDHs, ADHs that we can use. And for this this demonstration, I'm just going to use 140 stock days per hectare as the base assumption for each of our paddocks. So we can scroll down to the bottom then and see that the choices that we've made mean that we're going to be using 208% of our available carrying capacity for the paddocks that we've chosen. So we can straight away go and make another decision and say, all right, I'll choose some extra country, add some more paddocks in, and scroll back down and see that now we're back into a safe carrying capacity range of just 71%. For each of the individual paddocks, we can, maybe there's not 140 stock days per hectare in front 11, we can change that to 100. We'll do that for front 12 and front 13. And any of those changes will also be reflected down in the percentage of our carrying capacity again. You can keep making changes, or you can just say, right, I'm happy with that now, save that plan, down towards the bottom right there, go away and have a cup of coffee, or come back later on next week and after you've had a bit of a think about it and say, well, actually I'm going to make my front 9 paddock, front 10 paddock, front 11 and front 12 paddock available for some adjustment. So I'll take them out of this plan, have a look at our percentage carrying capacity. We're still within safe limits. It also tells us that we've got 70 days of surplus feed available at the end of the plan. So I've made a decision now to save that plan and I'll commit it to the chart. It's our grazing chart. We come in there now and have a look at our grazing chart. We can see how that's flowed through for our 2 rotations. We do have the ability to select the number of rotations through all of our paddocks. So I could have chosen to just make it 1 rotation or 3 rotations, but we have 2 on there. If we hover over any of the aqua shading, you can see that's our trade gleaners mob in the demo plan, starting on the 1st of May, and that will carry right through all the paddocks. As the plan flows through then, and our actual day comes into, say, 15th of June, we might have some frost or potentially some fire go through the property. We can come back into our plan and make some changes. We can, too far down, go back into our mobs and paddocks. And I'm going to take out SG2, SG3, SG4 from the graze, from the plan, I should say, and that pushes us up to 90% of our carrying capacity. So it gives us the ability to make some more decisions about what we're going to do with our livestock, whether we want to sell some or make some more country available for these animals. And save that plan and commit it to the chart. And go back in and have another look. And that's basically everything I wanted to cover very quickly. I know that's a quick demo, but I'm more than happy to talk to anyone that wants a bit more information, a bit more of a run through at any stage. So I'll hand back over to David now to continue with the rest of the presentation.
Great, thanks Nick. And queries just come in there. How do you reassess grazing after you've adjusted the plan? Yep, it's very much around the as Nick just demonstrated. It really is a matter of just going back and doing another plan at that point in time. And then how do you reassess after a mob has left? When you enter a paddock move, there is a prompt there to put any notes in. You can enter the feed that's left behind, and you've got the ability to enter some information around observations and measurements about what's in the paddock as you've come out of it, Rory. Any other questions specific to the program that anyone had there just while Nick was in the software? questions come in. Did the adjustment change the whole plan, or just from the date of the fire forward? If you go in and make an adjustment, so let's say you've Nic, could you ever just bring your screen up with that grazing chart again for a second, please?
You might have to throw it back to me again, David.
Oh, did you get back? Did you? Right, sorry. That's right. I'll use this. Oops. Sorry about that, guys. Just getting it back here. If I just go back to this one here, Richard, if you come in and let's say you're scheduled. So remember, this grey line here is today, and let's say you're scheduled to move from, in this case here, Blue Jacket Upper into hospital on this date here, 5th of April. But you decided to stay in Blue Jacket. If you extend out your stay there, and you push that out to by an extra 3 days, it actually moves the rest of your grazing plan out 3 days. So it doesn't just change that one paddock and create an overlap. It adapts everything moving forward. So it's pretty intuitive like that, and linked between the different components. How to adjust stock numbers? I'll see if I can just bring that up here if you wanted, Nic, or did you want to take that back and demonstrate how to change stock numbers and splitting paddocks? Can you split paddocks easily during the plan? My understanding with that one is that yes, you can. It's set up to be able to go through and split paddocks if you're going through a development plan, or if you're giving multiple paddocks together, you can set that up. Bart, is that correct? Or Nic, you'd be able to know?
Yeah, that's right, David. You can go through and split paddocks if you need to, and make adjustments to the plan as you go along fairly flexibly.
Did you want me to just give a demo there on stock numbers changing, bringing a changement here? You're probably better first to do that, Nic, but I'll have a go if you wanted.
Yeah, sure. If you're able to throw it back to me, I can do something there. Right, you've got me there now.
Yep.
Now, what was the specific question there, David?
Are we able to see how to adjust stock numbers?
Yeah, sure. So just by selling, and is that making sales and that sort of thing? Is that kind of what the question's implying?
Rory, did you want to expand on that for us there? Yep, the answer was yes. So, yep, such as sales and purchases. If you just want to do a dummy sale there for us, everything's pretty similar in terms of the layout, I believe.
Yeah, sure. So if we're making a sale today, we put the date in, put any name we want to for the sale, demonstration sale, an invoice number if need be, who they're sold to. So it'll still be empty. Any miscellaneous costs involved with the sale, and the mob that we're selling from.
As soon as you bring up that mob detail there, as soon as you select that mob, you can see how it brings up the mob data as you've got it entered, whatever the most latest information.
You can follow through that then and sell what we want to. So we're going to sell our wool steers. The calculations are done automatically for you there. Come through, save that sale. And the stock numbers then for the trade weaners have been updated to reflect that sale. Is there anything else we wanted to have a look at there now?
Question, if you're happy there, Nick, I'll just read out a few questions to you. I think that's a good use of time. Will it, one that was around splitting heifers out of weaners, so if you wanted to, if you've got any trade weaners there, or if you can demonstrate a split, it would be good.
Yeah, we come into our splits and transfers and mob to split. So we'll just split our trade weaners. So we split our existing from our existing mob into a new mob. Alright, just for the sake of a name, weaner heifers, and I guess we'll take our existing weaner heifers and put them through. Let's have our calculation then that it's taken them, we've got 0 left in our original mob, 40 in our 48 in our new mob. Save those mobs. You get a little bit of a warning that these selected mobs are currently in an active grazing plan. We'll click OK on that. We do wish to split that mob. A warning to say that that can't be undone, which is fine. And we've now got our 2 separate mobs. And we'll have to go back in and have a look at our grazing plan and make some adjustments there.
Which isn't a big deal from what I understand. It's not a matter of starting from scratch again. It's just an amendment. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty right. And as we start to get into, sorry, you going to say something?
I was just going to, I might unmute Bart. There's a question here I might direct at you if that's okay, Bart. Can we hear, you hear us, Bart? You there, Bart?
I hope so, Dave.
Yep.
How's that, Dave?
Good, thank you. Got you there. There's questions come through around can you enter planned sales and is the graze plan adjusted accordingly? Can one of you gents respond to that, please? Can you enter planned sales and is the graze plan adjusted accordingly?
Sure, I'll just jump in there, Nick. The short answer is that the system isn't too fussed about the past, the present and the future. So if we have sales in the past that we want to do retrospectively or today or in the future, they're all, they're just treated on a bait basis. So if we put in future sales, yep, that's no problem. People tend not to though because it locks us into that sale, but we are working on making that more flexible so that there's a distinction between a planned sale versus an actual sale. At the moment they're treated the same, and we realise that we need to make that a very distinct difference so that you've got a planned event, as it were, which might be a purchase, a sale, or a weaning or a joining, and that then doesn't actually become a fact until you confirm so. So we've got a little bit of work to do there, but at the moment, yeah, you can put a future sale in, and that feeds through.
Okay. Well, and that's definitely an area that that we've had a lot of discussions with Bart and with the team there, and that's the next major evolution for me is for that planned capacity, and so I think that's a pretty exciting next step, and particularly on that dashboard page to see the forecasted SDH per 100 or DDH per 100 graph moving forward is an exciting next evolution in the program. So there's a lot of, just on that point, there's still a lot of aspects and ideas that have been developed and included in there. The broad skeleton to be able to get some good information from the programs there. However, what you're seeing isn't the only bits that are coming. Questions come in there. Can you add supplementation notes to a mob somewhere?
Dave, look, I'll jump in there too if you like.
Thanks, Bart.
At the moment, yeah, in what I'll call the data model, which means the database which is related to animals and mobs and stock classes and paddocks, we have allowed for supplement, and yes, you can. You can either make a comment in a move, or you can enter an amount of supplement that might be given out per day, per head. And I will say though that because we've had so much different feedback from many different types of systems, we're yet to actually settle on whether that should be, or how that should actually look in terms of, you know, a product basis, or actually just a kilos of dry matter basis, or per head, per mob, etc. So it's in the model, and we're just refining what it actually needs to look like. But it's very simple to put a comment into the move or a mob and say, you know, it's a litre per day of X, Y, Z.
Great.
And that will be captured.
Good, and probably just following on from that, there's a question here, John. Nick, can you actually probably go back to your dashboard and just confirm a move, please? Because the question is, when you enter a mob movement, can you change the LSU DSC rating of the mob as you enter the new paddock to ensure you're accurately reflecting the SDHs or DDHs utilised from each paddock? For example, if the cows go from pregnant to lactating. Short answer, John, is absolutely. Yep, that. You can update it then. As soon as you change some mob details, it changes the actual yield that you're saying you're getting out of a paddock. And so there's just demo got a move plan that hasn't been done.
No plans until the 1st of May. Yeah, that was the first plan that I put in there.
Right, do you want to just, is there another demo company you can bring up that's got that there? But
I could just say, Dave, if you just wanted to click on any of those moves there, even if it's not a planned move, you could do the same thing.
Better.
If you click on the pencil.
Sorry, we'll get there in a couple of clicks.
Yep, so there's your move mob. So there's the move details up the top, paddock from, and then you got your mob observations down the bottom there.
Did you put in your
just scroll
estimated stock pace? You can put comments about the paddock both when you went into the paddock and the paddock that they're coming from.
Very good. Thanks, Nick.
David, just while you're there, if you wanted to, you could change the head, the rating, or the weight of any of those animals during that move as well.
Yep. So those fields that were up on the screen then were all editable in that move function. You haven't got to go to a separate screen, as I understand, Bart. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct, Dave. Any of those values or attributes of a mob or a stock class can be changed during a move. They can be changed in the grazing chart. They can be changed in a mob inventory. They all link up.
Yep. Yep. So if you can go and just, for those who are a bit more visual, you can just go to your grazing chart and enter, just click and drag on there and enter a move on your grazing chart. I'm just reading through some other questions here. Can you leave paddocks in the plan and colour them for whatever reason? So, you know, situation and possibly add them at a later date in the plan. I might get you to see if you can respond to that one, please, Bart, and I'll just read it for you again. Can you leave the paddocks in the plan and colour them out for whatever reason, so, such as I'm assuming fire or inaccessible for whatever reason, so that you know the situation and add them into the plan at a later date in the plan?
Sure, Dave. Good question, and the answer is no. I think at the moment the only visual representation of mobs in a paddock is to say that there was a graze, and that graze has A, B, C, and D values around it, time, intensity, etc., and the mob within it. But I guess what you're really asking there is, can we visually represent the difference between a planned move that hasn't happened or isn't going to happen, or for some reason is a variation from the plan, versus the paddocks that we planned and did? And the answer to that question is right now no, but we know that we need to do that.
Right, good, yep, so that's coming. And in terms of being able to handle dropping a paddock out for this rotation or this move, when do you want to believe you do there? You just exclude them from this one, and then once you've done that that round of grazers, or when it's time to bring it back in, you'd go and amend the plan to add that paddock back in when it's appropriate to bring it back into the plan. How does the program handle what if I do this situation? So scenario planning. So what happens if I bring in adjusted cattle? I believe that's part of that projected planning aspects that you're working on at the moment, Bart, is that correct?
That's correct, Dave, yes. At the moment we can run various scenarios in the grazing plan with mobs, but those mobs are actually considered to be real mobs. At the moment we haven't got a hypothetical mob scenario, but that'll be part of that livestock planning development that we're working on, so that you could have a hypothetical mob of any description.
Yep. Okay, does it automatically update weights based on estimated daily weight gains?
Good question. I'd love to say yes. We've done the detail of the development work. It just hasn't been completed, and we really want to have a situation where, yeah, livestock weight and daily performance drives the rating rather than needing to be a subjective opinion which varies so much between people. So we're certainly working towards that, to take that level of subjectivity out of the equation, and yes, it'll be based on livestock status and weight.
Yep. And for me, that's where, you know, I think a lot of people have got good individual animal data. They may run them in and run them over the scales, and you soon work out that you reckon your heifers are worth weighing this and your steers weigh that, and that's when you're going to use the individual animal data to update your mob data. And here, that's my personal approach to that. I think it's to try and link the two would be extremely complex and would potentially lose some accuracy at this higher level. A couple of questions there that have come in. If your plan was to go from paddocks 1, 2, 3 and then you went 2, 3, 1, would that adjust? I mean, as you go to just as you come out of your first paddock and then you go into your second one, you just change whichever paddock you're going into, and then it would update the plan on the next subsequent move that you were due to go into. And in your grazing plan and that rotation plan, I think the words are that Nic was showing you before, you can click and drag and put them in whatever order is most logical for what you're going to be doing outside. They're not always as nice and pretty as per the plan that mock one that Nic's done up for us, are they? So you can adjust that and move that around as you require. Very good. Okay, so thanks for those questions, guys. We've gone through hopefully the bulk of the ones that are there. What I'd like to do is I'll just probably grab things back from you there, if that's all right. And go through and just finish off on a couple of other bits of information for suited there. In terms of the investment around using the program, it does depend on what level of enrolment you're going to go for, and it's adjusted based on the actual scale of your operation. So the smaller the operation, the lower cost, and the higher the operation. The bigger the operation, the higher the investment will be. But the bigger you get, the lower your cost per head turns out being. There's 2 tiers of subscriptions, information on the website around what the difference is between silver and gold, and Nic and those guys are more than happy to talk you through what that differences are. They start from $60 a month for silver and $100 a month for gold. Based on the probe data for an average client that we see through in there, we feel as though the investment will be around that $250 a month, and that's for the full gold package, which does everything that the program does. So in rough terms, I look at that in terms of it's about half a day's bookkeeping a month that you're paying to have that information done live and up to date, and that's with full support from the likes of Nic and all your upgrades. To me, where this program is the those of you who work with me, the last thing I want to do is go increasing costs for people. However, I think that the admin savings and time savings from entering this information in one point and one place is going to be the main area which I think it's worth considering, and I'd like to see you get hold of the trial and have a bit of a play and see where you feel it's going to sit for you. If you're changing your numbers a lot, so you're going into a destocking period there because of droughts or something like that, then it's adjusted with that. So it's really designed to be fair and to work with you. With the last thing that both Maia and us would like to see is that you get to the end and go, oh, that didn't reflect the actual numbers we had. Would be adjusted. To start off with there, we'd be we estimate, so we work together to say how many, what average LSU or DSE you think you're going to have in the next 12 months, and then we'd set up a 12-month system based on that, and then we get to the end of the 12 months, and at the end of the 12 months we just do an assessment. Or if you go through a significant scale-up period from buying another property or adding a heap more country, then we'd change that through there. And similarly, if you get through your growing season that didn't exist and you've got a destock, then that's a pretty major drop-off. So the average, that $250 a month range is if you're in about that 1,500 to 4,500 off the top of my head. LSUs there, Graham, and answer your question. The how to get started. Having a bit of a chat to Nic is probably is a really good start there, and he can step you through it and talk about any aspects of it. There's going to be, I'll just put up a quick questionnaire here on the screen for you. So you've got the option there. If you would like for Nic to give you a call, or if you were interested in a free trial, or if you want to know what a quote would be for your operation, you can just tick the boxes there, and Nic will be in touch with you, or you can give him a call on that number or email there afterwards. Outside of that, are there any other questions from anybody? Is there anything else? Any other queries from you, any other aspects of the software? I was keen to keep this around that hour mark, and we're just over that now. I wouldn't want to take up any more of your afternoon. If there's more questions and some of those detailed questions that you may have, the best thing would be I'd suggest to get a trial copy and have a bit of a run through with it with Nic, so you can see it and do it. So just if you've got any other questions there, just let us know. If you're ticking any options there, guys, that's not obligation. It's obligation free, sorry. So don't feel as though you're committed to anything. We're just purely trying to get a sense out of the people that are on the call this afternoon, how you'd like for us to follow up. If you'd like us to follow up with you to have a bit of a look at the program. Bart, is there anything, Bart or Nic, anything you'd like to add from what we've discussed?
No, I think I'm pretty right, David. I think everything's been covered pretty well. Just look forward to getting in touch with people and picking up with the software.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I'm fine. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Very good. Very good. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for your time this afternoon. Thanks, Nic and Bart and Katie, for really working in getting to this point. Any questions on it, please ring through and give us a call. I think it's really exciting that there's this opportunity there to be able to use a system such as this, hence why we're having the conversation. And yeah, all the best for this year, and thanks for your time this afternoon.